Hey, what's going on, folks? We have a great show for you today. Mixed martial artist and former UFC women's bantamweight champion Holly Holm joins us today to talk about her recent win and her post-fight statements that went viral for speaking out against the over-sexualization of children.
Used your post-fight speech to use a platform, I believe, to sort of speak out against the sexualization of children. I'm curious if you wanted to use your platform again now to sort of go into further detail.
You know, there's a lot of things. I don't ever want to be... not like a real political person. I don't like to put that stuff on any of my social media or because I think there's just, but there's also just right and wrong, and I feel like everybody should be on the same side on that. I don't feel like that has anything to do with left side, right side, or anything like that. I feel like everybody should be wanting to protect our children, and there's stuff that is, there's a lot of child trafficking, and I mean that's like the extreme part, but there's a lot of levels to it. You just see it almost being more accepted, and I think that's really sad.
I'm excited to bring you guys this interview. The show starts now. It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. What's going on, everybody? I'm joined today by Holly Holm. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So before we talk about the post-fight statements, I wanted to talk about the win. I know you were a favorite in betting odds, but I feel like a lot of people were still counting you out. So the fact that you dominated so much, like, how did that feel? And I feel like you're super close to a title shot.
Yeah, you know, I've had a lot of ups and downs. The last 2 years has probably been the most that I've ever had injuries and setbacks and surgeries and just so much. And, you know, that being my later years from, you know, being 39 and 40, I'm 41 now. So a lot of people kind of saw my last performance, you know, felt that I was slower, didn't move. And, you know, I had a lot of things going on going into that fight. And maybe one of those times I probably should have postponed or waited. But, you know, sometimes you have to bet on yourself and take the gamble. And there's been a lot of times I've taken the gamble before and it pays off. You know, I only had 2 fights in the UFC before they signed me up for the title fight. And everybody thought it was too soon. And I was like, no, I'm betting on myself. I can do this, and I did. So there's a lot of times that happens. And even my last fight, not my most stellar performance, but I still feel I won the fight. You look at the punch counts, and it was one-sided. But I wanted to come back and show something better. And, you know, going up against Yana, she's a former teammate of mine, and I know how tough she is. And she trains really hard. She's one of those that knows how to grind. And we used to have some pretty heated sparring matches. So I knew I was up for a tough fight, but I know I've learned a lot, gotten better. I actually felt very good and healthy for once in a while for a fight. So I knew I just had to get in there and make it happen.
Well, even the fight before the last one, it was super, super close. Like, you definitely could have gotten a decision. I think you know, it's not like you lost terribly. A lot of people thought you won online.
Yeah, a lot of people thought that. And I mean, I'm glad that people see that, but also for myself is like, I need to make it more clear. So that's what I needed to do.
I saw Instagram, Twitter, everything exploded. And I didn't play the initial post fight because I think UFC has the ownership of that. I can play the post conferences a little easier, but, you know, the internet was going nuts when you said that you know, were basically taking a stand to protect children against over sexualization. I guess if you want to, I don't know if I'd say explain it, but talk about it, and then maybe what happened after that for you as far as media stuff.
Well, you know, before this fight, I always visualize, okay, over just the last year, 2 years, I just feel like it keeps getting, every time I keep thinking, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe I see this. And it just keeps happening. And nobody really actually is changing. I just keep feeling like it keeps getting worse. It's like, are they really teaching this to kindergartners? Are they really talking about not just like actual sex education, but it's like sex education about like how we're created and, you know, just about the basic education, which should even be later anyway. It's like they're talking about books in schools and elementary schools and things like that they shouldn't even be talking about that stuff. And
Right.
Those are some of the things I started seeing. I've seen teddy bears in bondage gear, and it's like, are we honestly, is this really, people actually are okay with this? And then I even see parents supporting it and bringing their kids in front of it. And I'm thinking, there is no way, no way. I don't have any children of my own. I have a lot of friends that have kids that I'll claim as mine. I have, two nieces, and I just look at, man, I just feel like it's life is full of a lot of hardships as you get older, and the only time you really truly have an innocence and can kind of learn about yourself and grow is when you're young, and we should be protecting the innocence of children. And so leading up to this fight, and it's just been something that's on my heart. But I always picture victory. I always picture like a victory speech, because you have to visualize it in order for it to happen. I visualize all of it: the training, the getting to the fight, the making the weight, the walking into the cage, just this journey you're on with your team, with your coaches, your family that's behind the scenes kind of has their support. And sometimes their support is just taking a step back, knowing that you need the space. And all these things that have to kind of fall into place. And then I picture everything all the way to the end. I have to picture my victory, picture getting my hand raised, and I picture, what I want to say and how I want to thank these people that helped me get there. And I was talking to my coach on the last week of training, and I told him, I said, I've been picturing my victory speech. And he dropped his mitts and he goes, tell me, what we got this time? Because we always talk about this stuff, you know what I mean? You make it more real. I talked to a sports psychologist one time, and they were like, it's actually proven the things you say out loud become more. It's scientifically proven, the things you say out loud are the things that more come to fruition rather than what you say in your own head. A lot of people have thoughts in their head they won't want to actually speak. When you speak something, it's more likely. If it gives me a 0.1% chance to win, when I say out loud, I'm going to win, I'll take that 0.01% better chance, And so a lot of times the more we talk about it, and so I've gotten more, vocal about it with my team and just in person. And I was like, I've been picturing, he's like, all right, what do we got? So we were just talking about it. I was like, I've been picturing, I said, but honestly, the only thing I can really think about is just speaking up for our children. My coach is like, I love it. Not that I had to win in order to say these things. I still wanted to say it, but it was just something that just gave me, I don't know, it was on my heart. And I just felt like, and then, sometimes when the fight happens and you actually get there, it's like you don't really know where your mind's going to be. We call it the adrenaline dump, and it just hit my heart when I was talking. And it was something I was visualizing. It's not like this full plan. You got to get through the fight before you even get there. But it just kind of hit my heart, and I just got to say it. I didn't really care if it's crazy to me to think that this could be controversial.
Right.
It's not something I cared about. I don't care if it offended anybody. I don't care. I want to say I do care, meaning that I feel like it shouldn't offend anybody. So I do care. I feel like everybody should be on the same page with it. But it actually, I feel it was more. I was praying a lot more. I'm a firm believer. I'm a strong believer, and I was praying a lot that if I was to say something that wouldn't just go in the wash, but be heard, and not only be heard, but hopefully be something that's mostly positive. I know some people are there's always gonna be someone that gets offended by no matter what you say, but that's kind of where this all kind of came from.
Yeah, I mean, obviously most people agreed with it that I saw. It went super viral. And then I thought for all the adrenaline you had pumping, it was very gracefully said and it was very thoughtfully said. Because most time people talk about these topics, I don't find them very graceful. I agree with what they're saying, but you said it as thoughtfully as you possibly could in the post-fight interview and also in the press conference. And when I started seeing, I know you probably don't even want to talk to them, but I'm basically arguing with some journalists. There's not very many. Most people are on your side, but they're complaining about it. And I'm like, really what you said in the post-fight interview was that when you're sexually abused as a child, that it kind of lingers in your life, which is totally true, which happens in multiple different forms. And you did it in such a broad way. I'm like, what's wrong with these people that are disagreeing with you? Because you didn't take a huge political stance. You didn't say it in a crazy way. You said it in the most thoughtful way, and they're still trying to reject it. It's weird. How do you feel about that?
I truly feel that anybody that has an issue with wanting to protect children, they are the problem. I don't care what political side you're on. We should be wanting to protect children. And what's crazy is I didn't even say any examples. I figured I can elaborate on that later, but a lot of people say, well, they talk about, the drag shows or the trans shows and things like that. So I didn't even say anything about that. But it does make me think, if they're saying that, are they seeing that? They're the ones that brought that up. And I'm not one to judge. I'm not going to judge people's lives. When they're an adult, make the decisions you want to make. But I do think that it's crazy that a lot of what is being happening is like, even in these, say it is drag or trans, and they're like going to elementary schools. It's not like they're going to an elementary school to like read a book. They're dancing sexually and provocatively. And I don't want any adult, it's not even about trans or not. It's about, I don't want any adult dancing in front of children sexually. It's not right. The kids shouldn't be in a traditional strip club and in any kind of, so it's any adult. It has nothing to do with like attacking any specific person or how they identify or whatever. It's just, why is it that it's sexual? Why are books getting in these elementary schools that are talking about oral sex? Why do we have teddy bears with bondage clothing? Like, there's so many things that it's sexual. And then I feel like a lot of people say, well, it needs to be inclusive. Well, why is inclusive only dealing with sexuality? Why are we not talking about other things? And it just gets to where that's like the main thing they're talking about. And being inclusive doesn't mean allowing sexuality around young children. It's just those things doesn't even make sense.
Right. The slippery slope's gone so far that they're just going younger and younger and they don't want any opposition. I would say, how did you feel like the ratio of love and people supporting you? Because to me, I saw so much of it. Like, thank God, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I've been rooting for you for a while since we've just chatted on Insta and just you following me, knowing what you were doing. I've been watching, supporting you. And then when you said that, I just saw it in my head. I'm like, that's gonna take over the internet, and it did. But what ratio did you see of like love versus like people hating? Like, how did that feel?
I think honestly, 90% is positive. And to me, that shows more people actually are on the same page. I've seen interviews with some of these people that are saying, I do these things and I don't even want kids at them. Like a lot of these, kind of just, like I said, provocative dancing of adults in front. I've even seen children dancing in front of adults. And to me, I can't even, like, you're dancing sexually in front of adults.
Right.
How did you even learn that? What parents put you on that stage and made you feel that you need to be entertainment, sexual, provocative entertainment for adults? To me, that's sickening to see children. There's more than one occasion. I'm talking bent over, legs spread, dancing 12-year-old in front of adults, and adults, cheering it on. And to me, I'm not like even women that try to make their daughters be, kind of put pressure on to be cute and wear makeup or whatever. There's even too much. I'm not saying that it's not just one specific situation. It's a lot. But in saying what I said, having a lot of 90% positivity towards it shows that more people actually feel that way. It just somehow doesn't seem to be talked about or spread as much. And maybe, a lot of people say, well, what's your goal? How do you really feel you're going to help? And it's like, well, if my voice gives even one parent a courage to say, well, maybe I want to say something. And then they do go to the school and say, hey, what is in the curriculum for my kids? And then if they if it creates one situation or even one school or one idea, just anybody that, even if it just gives them enough courage to say something, because more people are on the same page. I think they're just so afraid it's like out there that if you say anything that you're being hateful and not inclusive, and that like it's not that black and white.
Right.
Just because you don't want your kids to learn about sex when they're in kindergarten and learn and what they're trying to teach them, it's like there have been things where there's books. I saw this boy brought it home from school and he was reading the book and it was uncomfortable to read in front of adults and they're reading this in elementary schools. It's like, you know, there's a lot of parents, no matter what political side they're on, they don't want their kids learning that young. So if what I say helps anybody else to even just be like, you know what, maybe I need to say something too, or be more aware, or to look out or protect because it's so much out there, then it's worth it. It's worth it voicing it. But it has been 90% positive. So I'm thankful for that. That just shows that there's a lot of people that are still wanting good. They want to protect these kids. I just feel like it's not like I can be that hands-on, you know. It's like a lot of people say, well, where do I start? Well, sometimes just being aware and standing together and one can create into another and cause a trickle effect and just try and be positive for these kids.
I think it helped a lot. And I see that too. I think most people agree. And these things are turning into political issues, even with the masking. I remember hearing people say, like on Twitter, I'm a Democrat and I want to take off my mask because like the CDC said I could, but I don't want to because I don't want to look like a Republican. You're like, you think you look like a Republican for not wearing a mask? Like, this is what's going on in people's heads, and they're afraid to go against that, these things that aren't political that have become political.
And I don't understand it. I really don't. And that just shows how, and I think, I mean, obviously, I think social media is a good thing. And then also, it's what people see and what people put out there. And it's almost like if you don't wear one, you don't care about people. If you're not being inclusive, like if you're not okay with like sexual dancing in front of kids, then you're hateful to people. It's like that's not what it is. It's that I'm just not okay with these certain things. It's okay to have like a right and wrong in your life. It doesn't have to be political, but it is. I feel like we're so separate. It's getting further and further and further and further apart. It's not even you know, I don't even know why there is so much, you know, people are losing friendships over it. They're losing so much over because you might see this way or that way, but there's certain things that everybody is seeing eye on. Republican, Democrat. A lot of people didn't want to wear masks.
Right. I think a lot of it is, I use this example in fighting where in boxing and MMA, you're not really supposed to be emotional. Same within sports. You get a technical, you make a mistake. You have to be calculated. And a lot of media, left wing and right wing, is making people really ramped up and emotional. And that's no way to see through it. So sometimes when I say certain things, I'll get yelled at by both sides, depending what I say, where people are just waiting to snap. You know what I'm saying? Like they're waiting for me to say something to just go off because it's such an emotional, like algorithmic / divisive narrative going on in the country.
Yep. And that's what a lot of people want. And I mean, there's things that I think are pretty simple. I feel like all of us in America should be proud to be American. It's the best country. And if we were more proud, I think we would stand together, and we should care about our children. If all of us care about our children because that is the future of this great country, then we should all stand together for that. We should want to care about each other. And these are positive things. But it's almost like it's gotten so bad. It's almost if you say you're proud to be American, you're getting yelled at. Or if you say that, you know, you want to protect children, I don't even understand how that could be controversial, but it is. But people are, and it is on both sides. There are people that are extreme on both sides, and they're just waiting. They're waiting for something to be controversial. They're already coming in. As they're listening to what somebody else is saying, they're already coming in with how they can debate it, rather than actually listening, having like a thought about it, and then thinking. I feel like it is becoming, like you're saying, it's just almost automatic that it's like a debate. It's something they want to, you know, kind of bark back at for that.
With loving America too, it shouldn't be political, but 9 times out of 10, you see an American shirt and you just assume it's a Republican, even though it might not be, just off of that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a question. I asked my Facebook subscribers and Patreon. I gave them a day in advance, and a few people had some pretty cool questions. Jennifer said on Facebook, she said, "Do you get pressured to follow an agenda? They want to know, like, in sports, maybe with sponsors or whatever. Like, do they push agendas on you, or do you have more flexibility? Because it seems like MMA is a little less, like, forcing it."
I am very thankful. I do think that a lot of organizations out there do kind of push a lot of that, and I think that would be. I mean, I would think that's more, NBA, NFL. I feel like, with like more of these big corporate businesses, I think that they do get a lot of pressure because they might have like a sponsor that's for the organization or the team, or then there's more pressure on that. But being, a martial artist, you're kind of your own team, and there are different. There's let's just keep one thing, just one example. So say with the vaccines, like some of these more corporate like companies and sports, it's like you have to get a vaccine.
Right.
In MMA, it wasn't necessarily forced, but it's like if you at a time, you couldn't fly overseas. Well, what if there's some fights overseas? Then fighters would have to be like, well, is this worth it? Do I, at least they can make the decision because they can take the fight or not take the fight. So I do feel there's more individuality in martial arts. I mean, with that being said, it's harder to get sponsorships because we're on our own. So there's the good and the bad. But honestly, I'm super thankful that in my line of work, my sport, we definitely do get to have our sense of individuality, and I am super thankful for that.
Miss Carol on Patreon said, "I enjoy watching MMA and boxing. Would you ask her how and why she chose to get into the sport? And I know your nickname is the preacher's daughter, so it'd be cool to hear like how all this came to be."
Well, my dad's a preacher, and I didn't really want a nickname. They would just make up names. They're like, "What's your ring name?" And I'm like, "I don't have one." They're like, "Well, what are we going to call you?" I'm like, "How about Holm?" It was kind of things, and they would just start making up nicknames when they would call me out. I'd be going to a fight like, what? I was H2 one time, and they called me like Hottie Holm one time because some people on the internet were like putting 2 T's instead of 2 L's. And they did Hollywood, and it's just all these different names. And like, when I was like, I better pick a nickname, or it's just gonna be random all the time. And so I was like, I'm just gonna put the preacher's daughter because I am, because my dad's a preacher, and that's where my name's from. He still is actively preaching a little church out in Edgewood here with Church of Christ. And when I was in high school, as far as getting started in the sport, in high school I kind of wanted to wrestle. My brothers wrestled. That was before women's wrestling was kind of big. I would have been the only girl on the team, and my dad and my mom were like, we don't really know if we want you with the guys. It's just, I really wanted to be more physical. It's always been something I played soccer, and I was always kind of like the more physical player, not as much finesse, but like aggressive. I've always loved just, I grew up with my brothers. They were playing, football with their buddies. I'm like, I want to play. The biggest thing was this, like, yeah, you can play with us, but you can't. We're not going to wait for you. You have to keep up and don't whine. And so I want to hang out with them so bad. I would just try and keep up. And I've always been like that, super competitive and just physical. And my sophomore year in high school, I started doing a kickboxing aerobics class to keep in shape in between soccer seasons. And I just started doing it, and I felt like this just feels good. It feels natural. I went to some smoker fights, some kickboxing fights. I thought, man, that's awesome. I want to try that. I just want to see what it's like to fight one time. So I started sparring with my coach, which is still my coach to this day, Michael John. I just happened to walk into the right gym back then, and I said, whenever you think I'm ready, just tell me, and then I want to fight, but only when you say I'm ready. And so when he told me I was ready, went down, had my first fight. I was addicted. So I just kind of turned into that, and I boxed for 10 years pro, and then started to get really intrigued with MMA. We trained out of the same gym. The second half of all my boxing fights were, I actually trained in the cage with my teammates. They would just box when they were paired up with me instead of kickboxing. sometimes old teammate of mine, they also used to fight for the UFC. They're like, hey, she's fighting a tall kickboxer, so let's do a round. And if you can grab her, try and throw her down. I was like, all right. I'd throw her down, but she would like rotate me and land on top. And I started thinking, no, I need to take her down and land on top. And I just started getting excited about it. And I told my coach, I want to try MMA. And my passion just I was going to do both for a while, and I did. And then I just got to the point where I just wanted to do MMA. It's just all I was focused on. So
Well, it's been a good path so far. I wanted to ask your opinion on the WWE and UFC merger. And with that, too, I guess it's a double-parted question. A lot of people are now speculating of how things are going to cross over, if Brock Lesnar will have an easier time. Obviously, people are now speculating you and Ronda, even though she's just doing that. But people are wondering, like, how do the fighters feel about the merger, if it affects them or not, or if there's like potential crossover, or it's just like a business transaction.
I honestly, personally, it's entertainment, and if people want to watch it, and then if the fighters want to do it, I just don't see how it's negative. I definitely feel it's good to keep them separate. I know right now they have, the power slap is on there, and sometimes I'm like, they put that all over the UFC, and I'm like, my goodness, we train our butts off to get in there, every kind of skill set you can imagine, and then it's kind of, sometimes I'm like, to just stand there and get slapped, and that to be kind of like praise is like, sometimes that one is a little more hard for me. I'm not trying to talk down on it because obviously people want to watch it and some kind of entertainment. But I do feel like WWE's like there's still a little more to it, and even like with Ronda, a lot of people are like, oh, she goes. I'm like, how do you feel about her going, to WWE, or how do you feel about her doing wrestling? I'm like, if that's what she enjoys doing and that's providing, and that it's like, how is that a bad thing? I definitely am like loving just MMA, but who knows? Like it's, I think professional wrestling has been around for so long that obviously it's something that people get entertained by. So I guess we'll have to see, how it goes forward.
For those who don't know, the parent company who owns, or one of the companies, Endeavor, that owns the UFC, just bought WWE. So they're going to stay separate. But I guess that company now owns both. So we'll see what happens there. And what you were saying with Power Slap, I like Dana from the outside. I've never met Dana White, but I like him. And I know he loves Power Slap, and he gets really upset when people don't like it, even though it's like most MMA fans. But I feel the same way too. Sometimes at the post-fight conferences, he's talking about Power Slap so much, and I'm trying to watch the previews of it, but it's defenseless. It's just kind of tough to watch. And as a fan of MMA, UFC, I really don't like it. But since it's his other business, he kind of uses the UFC platform to push it.
Yeah, I feel. Honestly, I get along with him great, and he's always been. Obviously, like my manager and him fight, when we're doing negotiations, that's the way it's supposed to be. That's why I have a manager. But personally, Dana White and I, we get along just fine. He's always been really respectful and good to me, inside and outside of fighting. And I have no problem with him at all. I'm very thankful for a lot of the opportunities he's given me. So I have nothing but good things to say about Dana. It's a business for him. So if somebody else is in those shoes, right, they're like, oh, this is gonna create, more of this and that, and viewers, and it's a business platform. It's somebody else. If they were making the money on it, they're probably not gonna be complaining about it, right? So I think that's kind of where it's at. It's like you can't really get mad at someone who's just broadening what they've already built, and he's done so much for the UFC, so he's using the UFC to help kind of be a platform for it. And actually, how can you really hate that? Because he's helped UFC be what UFC is. So there's all that. But I'm not going to say there's no skill to the power slap, because I'm sure there is. I'm sure the way they wind up and the way they slap and all that, they take the hit or whatever. There has to be something. There's something. But I think when you come from like a mixed martial arts background, I think it is more. Regular fans, I think they like it. I think it is more like MMA based people that are like, there's so much skill and like this like respect and into the martial arts that they're kind of like, it's harder for them to maybe embrace it. I'm not hating on anybody that likes it. I'm not hating on Power Slap at all. I think it's just if people want to watch it, like it's obviously it's entertainment, and I mean, I'd still rather see that than Baku dancing in front of children.
Right.
Yeah.
I hear you. I like Rumble. I like Dana, and I'll take Dana talking about Power Slap for 3 minutes and UFC for 20 minutes over him not being at the press conference, because anytime he's not there, it's boring. So he's still,
For sure.
yeah, he's still entertaining. I guess I have a few more questions. The first one would be, are you thinking about saying anything else in your next fight? And are you trying to lean into this and kind of spread the word slash, because I think a lot of people really liked it, like you said, 90%. And you've already been huge. You've already had attention in many ways. But I think in the social media era, like I can't even remember. I shared someone else sharing it, so it came from their page, but it had like 3 million views like so quickly on Twitter. Like the thing went mega. So are you going to lean into that more and say more, or what are you thinking?
I want to definitely have a voice because I feel, like I said, I'm a firm believer, and I prayed a lot about it, that it would be something that's embraced and accepted in a positive way. I definitely don't want it to be to where like that becomes. I've seen a lot of people that maybe use their platform to talk about something, and then that's all you hear, and it's like, but I'm also a fan of of your sport and what you do, and I want to make sure and stay true to that. I'm a martial artist, and I love all my fans, and I want to embrace that, and I want to stay true to that. I'm a martial artist, and I want people to follow me for my art. But if I can have a positive, kind of stance, then I want to stay with that. And I hope that more people actually embrace this in like I said, a non-political way. Because I really, truly feel that there isn't, it really shouldn't be a left or right thing. Anybody that goes and looks at what damage does to people when they've been sexualized when they're young, there's statistics that shows it's terrible. It really affects their whole life. And like I said, I have friends that have been there, and I think the more that people are protected when they're young, it's just going to be better for them. Mental health is huge in this world. There's so many things that can affect you, even if you do make it through your childhood without having that. The world's a pretty harsh place to be in, and I feel like it's good to let people kind of grow, be protected when they're young, and also kind of go through their awkward stages, learn about themselves. That's part of growing up without it being forced and pushed on you. So I definitely want to have a voice about it, but I want to make sure that my voice is neutral. I think that's my goal, is to not be, left or right, and not to be, hateful on any one type or group of people. It's just, let's protect our children. And that should really not be controversial.
Right.
So you want to have a positive voice, but definitely a neutral one.
Well, it comes off genuine. I know you don't need the attention, and you don't have to say it. So when you said it, I feel like you could feel the emotion in your voice and the genuineness of the statement. So we appreciate it. And on the fighting note, I feel like you're right up there. You are right up there for title shots. I mean, you're in the top 3-4 contenders in your weight class. Like, what's your road back there? Because I feel like you're only one fight away, if that. Maybe you could get one without it. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel it's right there. I feel like I should be on a 4-fight win streak. If my last fight would have been a victory, so, and that's fighting the top girls, and so we'll see what happens. Right at the top is Raquel Pennington and Julianne Pena and Nunez, and I've already fought Pennington twice and had victories, so that one doesn't really make sense, not to me, and I wouldn't think that really makes sense to a lot of fans either. I don't think anybody, it's been visited. And no disrespect to Raquel Pennington. She's great. She's a great fighter, and I have all the respect for her. Just don't feel like that's maybe the fight to make. So we'll see. There's the top 10 can do this and this and this in 2 months, depending on how it goes. So I know Pena just wants the rematch for the belt because they're 1-1, and And I mean, you can't really hate her on that. Sometimes people want to see that rubber match and see what's going to happen. Who knows? I mean, there's always the 145-pound division that also there's not a lot of girls in it, but you never know. So I'm just kind of waiting to see what doors open. I'm healthy and ready to rock and roll. I'm going to just take a little time, let the body relax a little bit from a hard training camp. You go weeks of beating your body up. But yeah, I'm excited. And I do feel like the gold is in grasp, so I'm still drinking big.
I haven't saw the scheduling, but I know I like Juliana Pena a lot too. And you know, to be fair, I don't know. Just like Nunez got a rematch because she was the champion. I don't know if Pena is gonna get the match or deserves it to right away. So would you fight her, or has that been floated?
I feel like that's how you got to do it. That's the next one that's just down from the belt. So if that's the next one that they set up, then great. She's really tough. She's a scrapper. She's kind of one of those unpredictable fighters. She's a dog. She'll get in there and she makes a fight. So you have to be ready for anything. And even with her fight with Nunez, the first one, she finished it with submission, but it started with those jabs. So I think a lot of people weren't expecting that with Nunez. I think they all expected, Pena might get scrambled with Nunez. They didn't maybe expect, and maybe Nunez didn't expect it either. Who knows? We don't know what's really going on in fighters' minds in there. We can always assume or suspect something, but you never know what's really going on in there. So yeah, she has the ability on her feet, in the clinch, on the ground. She's tough. So who knows? Maybe that's going to be next.
I guess before I ask my last question, I'm gonna squeeze one more in since I have you here. Francis Ngannou recently left the UFC to kind of explore possibly boxing higher money fights. It seems like he hasn't got one, and just from an outsider perspective, I think it would be beneficial to him if he picked one up in the next couple of months because it's been like a long drag. But do you see yourself ever doing that, crossing over to other leagues or looking for money outside of it on a move like that, or no?
I definitely think that people think if Nagano fights at any point, people are going to want to watch it,
Right.
regardless if it's now or later. However, I do think that people's excitement can start to come down if it doesn't happen. Um, for me, the only other thing that I really think about is the only thing that kind of intrigues me outside of um, the UFC is to box one fight, and there's only one that I would be thinking. Katie Taylor is the champion at 135-pound, and she was champion and at 135. So I fought at 140, 145, or 140, 147, and 154 in boxing. And I started to do MMA at 35 because I had already fought at 40. I thought if I'm actually wrestling and grappling with these girls and I'm coming in like kind of green in that area, I should probably go to 135 and not go with the bigger girls. So that's why I went to 135, and I started to realize I can fight at 135. And so I was still boxing, and my last boxing fight, the girl I was supposed to fight, she had the 135-pound belt, and I had the 140-pound belt. She's like, well, I don't usually fight at 140. Like, well, we can fight at 135, but it's going to be for your belt. She's like, no, I don't want to fight for my belt. I want to fight for your belt. So I fought at 140. But sometimes I'm like, is that like unfinished business to fight at 135 in boxing? Because then I would be, 4 weight division champion.
Right.
And so sometimes I feel like maybe that's the unfinished business, but it would have to be a fight that really intrigues me. And the fact that Katie Taylor and Serrano did being the main event and a sellout show at Madison Square Gardens to be a female and headline boxing is huge. And I'm really proud of them, and it's exciting. And Katie Taylor won that night, and she's also from Ireland. A
Right.
lot of my heritage is from Ireland. My grandmother and everybody came from there. So sometimes I feel like that might be like a fun fight. So that's the only one that kind of like intrigues me outside of MMA. But right now I'm so focused on getting back to the belt in UFC. But who knows what the future holds?
Right. That would be a good one. They're doing crazy big things the same way you did for UFC. The fact that they sold that out, the like just pulling crazy numbers for female boxing, Serrano and her, that would be good. I think that would be a big event if
You
that
never know.
came to fruition. Yeah.
It's something that's like, I feel like I've always said passion first, everything falls into place. I feel like you have to be passionate about what you're doing, or you're not going to succeed because your heart needs to be in it. That literally is like one of the only things that makes me feel like really intrigued about going back to boxing. Other than that, I'm kind of done. I'm pretty stuck on MMA.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't make the rankings and stuff, but I think Pena should probably get another fight before she gets back to the belt, because, you know, they give it to like Valentina or Nunez. When you've been the champion for so long, you get that right away rematch. But, you know, I don't know that anyone else really gets right away rematches like that. So
That's fine. Yeah, you're totally right. Like even with Shevchenko in this last fight, she was reigning champion for so long. She deserves to get that shot back. And same thing with Nunez. She was dominating for so long that you get it right back. But it is for that rubber match. Sometimes that takes a little bit of time.
I guess my last thing would be whatever you want to say, any message, any word to the people, where they can find you, what to look out for. The floor is yours. And thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you for, I know it's probably a busy media week, but thanks for getting back, and it's been great.
I appreciate your time, and I appreciate just kind of getting together, talking, and I honestly just my message to people is just let's just be positive. I really feel like what we need to do is to come together as a people and follow along. I hope that my message helps other people be positive. Like I said, this is nothing to be judgmental on any type of person, but I really do feel just the right and wrong, and I'm gonna try to. Obviously, I'm not perfect, so I'll try to be the best version of myself as well. But let's just kind of keep going in this path of life, this journey of life, in a positive way. And in the meantime, I'll keep training and try to keep improving myself to put on another show in what I do and in what I love to do with martial arts, but also along the way stand up for things that I truly believe in my heart. So.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining. I've been reading the chats slightly to the side, and I didn't see a single negative comment. Everybody loves you, and they're glad you came on. So thanks for being here.
I appreciate everybody watching. I wouldn't have what I have if I didn't have people that cared and people that were positive, and if I didn't have fans. So even the haters, there's some out there, but I appreciate you too.
What Holly's trying to say is I've carried her whole career with this podcast. No, I'm just joking.
There we go.
I'm just playing. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, have a good one, guys. And the outro is going to start now. Dream Rare Podcast. Thanks for being here, guys. Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts, stay blessed long sleeve, God is great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check out the shop to support. Everything's made in the United States. Handpicked by me. Patreon.com/raretalk for $5 a month. You can help support me, support the show. If you haven't noticed, unlike other channels, I don't work with very many sponsors, sometimes none at all. And part of the way I'm able to do that is with the dreamrare.com shop and patreon.com/raretalk. So thank you guys for keeping this show free, unimpeded, uninterrupted. I'm forever grateful. My free email list is